My inheritance has cost me. The car and gadgets are nice. And I've almost gotten used to the smell in the cave. It's the criminals. Since my father died, they've focused their attention on me.
Hey man, somebody killed this lady.
And the people around me. My father's enemies have gotten more twisted with age, more violent and suicidal.
Crashing destroyed with no survivors.
Because they know their inevitable end is near. They've seen Batman die. They've seen each other die.
I can't believe they killed him. Yeah, man, things are getting really bad out here.
The Riddler.
This puzzle is far more than any mere game.
Dr. Death.
You and I go way back, Batman.
Two-Face.
I still believe in Harvey Dent.
All gone. Like the life I hoped for beyond this mask. Everything I have, everything I am, is because of him. I'm the Batman's daughter. I am the Huntress. And tonight, I'm hunting the man who destroyed my life.
Hello and welcome to the Huntress Podcast. This is episode number 36. I'm Ashford, and along with me is Laurel. Hello, Laurel.
Hello, Ashford.
And we also have in the chair with us is Diane. Hello, Diane. How are you?
Hello, Ashford. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. This is fun stuff. We are talking about Batman Family number 19. This is when we talk about a Helena Wayne podcast, and we're trying to find out who is this, like the city burner, this arsonist that Helena Wayne is trying to stop here. What is this one called in particularly, Diane, Laurel?
It says Gotham town is burning down.
So, Diane, could you give us the synopsis to this one?
Batman Family number 19 says Helena Wayne follow up on a clue she witnessed earlier in South Gotham and returns to the scene of the crime later that night as the Huntress. Her investigation takes her to a seemingly empty courtyard until a light comes on in a seemingly abandoned building. The Huntress takes a peek through an open window and catches a glimpse of a man designing a firebomb. Before she has a chance to get a good look at his face, a gun is fired in the Huntress's direction, and the suspect makes his escape. Back in the offices of Cranston, Grayson and Wayne, Helena continues to question her place at the law firm when her sexist co-worker, Roger Damaris, bursts into her office to show her boss, who's also in Helena's office, footage of the Councilman Gresham's proposal for rebuilding South Gotham. Roger thinks the law firm should support Gresham in his endeavor by proposing the legal means of achieving it. Helena supports Roger's decision, but only as it benefits her own private investigation as the Huntress. Helena spends weeks investigating her case, but no new leads turn up, and she is forced to retreat into a flat where she decides to work out her frustration in an exercise routine. Deciding to catch up on a colleague's televised debate with Councilman Gresham on his proposal, a casual line from the councilman himself tips Helena off on him being her primary suspect. 6 hours later, Helena pays a visit to the Councilman Gresham's home as the Huntress, where she catches the councilman and her colleague debating the details of his plan. Deciding to call it a night, the councilman shows her colleague to the door, while Helena makes her own entrance to collect evidence against Gresham. In her enthusiasm to make her first break in the case, however, Helena is not mindful of her breaking and entering tactics, which catches Gresham's attention and subsequently captures the Huntress. With her own fate in Gresham's hands, Batman Family number 19 ends on a major cliffhanger.
I am vengeance. I am the knight. I am Batman.
You need to take out the trash.
I don't have time for that now. We have 2 podcasts I have to create a new promo for.
What? Both JLU Cast and Supermates?
Yes, JLU Cast, where you and I discussed the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited animated series from Bruce Timm and Company.
And Supermates, our original show where we talk about all sorts of geeky stuff, including our annual House of Frankenstein series on classic horror films. Yeah.
That's it. But how do we combine this into one promo?
have no idea, but it sounds like we're doing our original Supermates promo all over again.
I kind of think we are, but hey, other folks kind of aped it, so it must have worked.
Well, why don't you get to work taking out the trash and I'll finish up.
Great.
So join us, Cindy
And Chris.
on JLU Cast and Supermates, both proudly part of the Fire and Water Podcast Network, found at fireandwaterpodcast.com and on iTunes.
Okay. The writer is Paul Levitz. The penciler is Joe Staten. Bob Layton is the inker. Gene Simek is the letterer. Adrian Roy is colorist. And Alan Milgram is editor.
That's awesome. Thanks. And we did get one response on the website, thehuntress.podcast.com, when we talked about Batman Family number 18. This is by Tim Price. He says, I really like the story. It gives Helena a life outside of superheroes, setting the stage for having friends, co-workers, and even problems beyond supervillains, which are all important to make her a distinct character and not considered another Batgirl, Batwoman, female Batman. As a Huntress, as Huntress, it's great to see her in a street level story. We haven't had that since her origin, and it's a great setting for her as a solo hero. Looking forward to more. Thanks for the great discussion. As always, Hun Trio. Thanks, Tim, for writing in, and you guys can write into us to make comments about the stories we talk about, just to open up the discussion, get different points of view. Maybe there's something in there, you might know some background history about the writers or where these stories came from or something that we missed. So that's some awesome stuff. Or just write in and say that we're doing a great job. So let's take this away, Laurel.
Alrighty. Well, we've got our girl starting over, doing her investigations now that she has a slim lead about going to this courtyard where she saw the bomber paying a kid to plant these bombs, which was pretty upsetting. And she shows off some skills here. I'm curious, Diane, why don't you start us off? Did you like how she's portrayed here?
Well, I do like that Paul Levitz is showing that Helena Wayne is not an experienced crime fighter just yet. She's still at the prime, so to speak. She's still, at the beginning of her career. And so she's asking all the important questions, but is at the same time not sure how to proceed. So I like the fact that we're seeing her detective side. We're actually seeing, how much, Batman and Catwoman's training has actually been paying off for this character. So it's been fun to see, her thinking about, okay, this doesn't make sense what's going on here. And I'm not sure that this is where I'm supposed to be. And then suddenly a light, comes on in one of the flats of a building. And she's like, okay, so here's my first chance to find out what's going on. So she actually, she follows every lead. No detail goes unnoticed with Helena Wayne. As soon as something looks out of place, she immediately looks into it. And I think that's one of her best character traits in the pre-crisis era, is that she is very thorough and she's very meticulous in the way that she investigates her cases. And I think this is what makes her, I would say, a detective right at the same level as Batman. I would say her biggest flaws as a heroine at this point is that she hasn't quite developed a method yet for doing what she does. She knows how to ask questions, she knows what to pay attention for, but how do you capture the bad guys? The one thing that she's struggling with. So I do like that we're seeing, just how new she is at this superhero thing, but we also see what, skills she actually learned growing up. So we do get both things in this one scene, this one opening scene.
Same thing here. I love the fact that she's using her detective skills. She mentions how, okay, let's think about it. Someone that can pay a kid to set fires in here, they wouldn't live in the same area. So this got to be some outside source. So I just like that because she doesn't have a sidekick to talk to, we're getting the inner dealings of how her methodology. So I enjoy that.
Yeah, well, she certainly has perseverance. That's something I definitely, even throughout the whole book as Huntress, because she's doing this surveillance, because she was there a pretty long time before that light went on. Just, surveilling the area. One thing that I did sort of wonder about, I don't know if y'all caught this, I think she's on the 3rd floor. And when the guy shoots at her, she falls out of that window. And I'm like, how in the world did she get on the ground?
I just assumed that she fell on the ground, but yeah, she had a rope on her the whole time, so I imagine that's how she got up there in the first place.
Okay.
And
I was just like, okay, yeah. What did she do? They skipped that part. Well, I thought with the acrobatics that we get that scene, I'm like, I would have liked to have seen how she did it.
Yeah, the thing is that she's got a rope, especially when she's still on the ground. You know, they do show her, you know, on a rope, you know, climbing, or at least going for the climb. And so, yeah, so she gets on the third floor, and then I'm assuming her suspect actually shoots at her. The question is, the question that I end up with was, how did he quickly get from the third floor to the car if she, in the time that it took her to fall? You know, doesn't he have some flight of stairs to go down? Did he jump out of a window as well? And if so, on which side of the building?
Yeah, it's just a little awkward there, that part of the scene. But I find that when she does make these errors, for one thing, she's always saying, you know, Dad made this look easy, or that's not what Dad said, or that kind of a thing, that she does that a lot. So I like the fact that she's using training, and yet she's not perfected it. Like Diane, what you were saying, you know, she's still learning how to do these things, and I'm not sick of that yet. Her errors are still endearing. I don't feel like that shtick has gotten old. She's exploring, and I'm willing to, you know, explore with her. That has worked out, which I thought was a good thing, because I think this could get tiresome. Now, what I am tired of is the next thing, which is her thing with the lawyers, and should she be a lawyer or not, and then the horrible sexist guy comes in. Go ahead, Ashford.
Roger Damaris. This is awful. This is like, oh my gosh, this guy's awful. I'm looking at a panel where he has his finger in her face. Then there's a part where he's all stretched out on her furniture, just turns on the TV. This guy needs to be ended. And then, like the boss, he just goes, your behavior is abominable, Roger. And then they continue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the only
thing.
And
then they write it. And then they write it where, oh, Roger, you do have a heart.
I have one question, though. Do you think that her continually questioning whether she should be a lawyer or not with her boss makes this in any way, if he wasn't so horrible about it, is his criticism of, hey, you know, you're really not into this, is that valid, do you think?
No.
Okay. I'm just curious.
What do you think, Diane?
I'm not sure understanding the question.
Well, because she's continually questioning whether she should or shouldn't be a lawyer, can she make a difference here? And she's always seems to be ruminating that with her main boss. So when the other guy comes in, he says it horribly because he's a horrible person. But it is true that she's waffling here. And I wondered if that has any merit, that he's upset about that part, at least, not the rest of it.
I don't think it has any merit because the main boss, what's the dude's name?
Arthur Cranston.
Cranston, yes. He's a senior member. So he understands, like, he sees what Helena Wayne can bring to the firm, and he knows that this doesn't have to be done in a day. You know what I'm saying? So he knows how to, you know, if you're a senior member, you know, like, okay, with this person, you motivate them this way. This other person, you got to be a little bit more hands off. With this folks, you need to give some wait time. So I think Damaris is coming in with his prejudice and whatever is going on with him, his 1970s thinking and all that stuff. I think that's the problem. But I think with, here's the thing. Helena Wayne's being thoughtful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's so many people where they're like, hey, I'm sure of myself, and they're horrible. So the only hesitation that's going on with Helena Wayne, to me, I may not even know what I'm talking about, is that she's just putting a lot of thought into what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the senior member, he understands, like, dude, it's kind of like a director that, man, they directed something really good, and then they directed 2 duds, and it's like, but I know it's in them, so they're worth keeping around. I don't know.
No. Diane, you have anything on that?
Well, the thing is that Helena Wayne, when she's questioning her place at the law firm, I think she knows what her full potential is, but she doesn't feel like she fully realizes that full potential by being a lawyer, especially when so many other people can do the same thing that she is currently doing. So her thought process is, I can do so much more. And I feel like, I'm not really putting out my best work here. So I think that's what Helena's thinking about, is the fact that she's capable of doing the same thing as all the other lawyers that can fulfill her spot. But the thing is, she can do so much more. And that's why she enjoys being a Huntress a lot more. She's actually accomplishing something that is very satisfactory to her, whereas doing paperwork and coming up with legal documents and debating stuff is not really her thing. She's kind of an action girl, and so she feels like she's not really doing her best work, or at least, she's not doing more what she would like to be doing. And so that's part why she's constantly questioning it. And so you've got Arthur Cranston, who's like, hey, the fact you're actually thinking about this means you deserve to be here. We need someone like you to think, all of this stuff through. And she's like, okay, sure, but, couldn't I be more effective, in another endeavor? That's what she's thinking of. And then you've got, Roger Damaris being, an asshole. I'll probably be bleated out there, but it's true.
Mm-hmm. He's horrible, though. Ugh.
Yeah, luckily this is the only time that we see him, though. He doesn't really appear after this story. But, yeah, the thing with Roger's just kind of, it's tiresome. So, yeah, I can see why they stopped using him after this story. But, yeah, he's basically there for two reasons. One, to kind of make a point about workplace sexism in the 1970s, but he's also there to challenge Councilman Gresham on his new policy. And it's actually in that conversation with the councilman on the telly that, Helena Wayne gets her first big break. So in this story, she spends weeks, trying to find new leads, especially after she botched her first lead. And she's like, wait a minute, it was that simple. All I had to do was turn on the telly and all the information I needed was right there. So she's kind of like, she's a bit livid that, she's been doing this for weeks, and so she decides to work it out in her flat, using her furniture as, workout equipment. Then she turns on the telly, and during that conversation, Councilman Gresham says something that actually, catches her attention. She's like, oh, so this is who I need to be paying attention to. So yeah, so Roger Damaris, he kind of fulfills only two roles here. He makes a point about workplace sexism, but he also helps unwittingly, accidentally give Helena Wayne her second big break in her case, and this is when things start to move forward for her.
What's scary about all this is, I feel like if this was like a show from back then, that character would have stayed on there to spew the sexism and then be proven wrong, but the sexism is still being spewed out as a platform.
I just, I thought on the one hand, she is wavering. So, okay, that is sort of partially true. The rest of it, the way he says it is just horrible. The fact that he calls it, what is it, like the Wayne fiefdom or something? I don't know. He's prejudiced against her for being a woman and for having money. That seems to be his problem. I am curious, though, when did she get this apartment? Is this new to us? Because this is really cool. It is set up as, it looks like it's just regular furniture, maybe a little Art Deco-y kind of thing, or modern or whatever. But she's using it, she's got it set up as a gym. It's really, really cool. Was that something that was there before that we just didn't know about, or is this new?
So this is the first time, this story is the first time that we actually see her flat, because the first time that we saw her in residing somewhere, it was at Wayne Manor in her origin story in DC Superstars number 17. So last time we saw her in anything, she was still living with her parents at Wayne Manor, and then sometime after her mom's death, she moved out. So this is actually the first story where we see her flat in Gotham. So she moved out of Wayne Manor. Her dad's still alive at this point, it should be pointed out, but she's actually living on her own now, and she's living in a very posh neighborhood. I think it's one of the things that they mentioned. They specifically said posh neighborhood, I think. And she's got a penthouse in that particular building, so she's got the top level to herself. So yeah, she's got a very posh flat, and she's got really nice furniture there. I'm always surprised that the lamp is actually still standing after putting all her weight on it. But yeah,
well, I got the impression that it was supposed to look like a lamp, but it's really not. It's designed for her to be swinging on.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if it's like attached to the floor or something. But yeah, this is the first time that we see her flat, in a story. So, because when she's with the JSA, she's usually at JSA headquarters, or she's on the street somewhere or in a different city. But this is the first time that we actually see her flat in the story. So it's assumed that she moved out sometime after her mum died and hasn't been back to Wayne Manor since, except much later on.
Well, she's definitely showing off gymnastics skill here, which this was really neat. I just really like this sequence, and it's like one page, and I thought, oh, that was really neat. I liked how they did that, and they used that later, I'm assuming later, and so when she shows off skills as Huntress, well, here it is. This is where she learned that. I do have a question for you guys with this Gresham. I got a couple questions about the Gresham guy. But wasn't Demarest supposed to be wanting to back him? Because when they're on TV, they seem like they're arguing. So I don't understand.
So the way that I interpret that scene is that, okay, so Demarest thinks, okay, so this guy's onto something. This Councilman Gresham, he's got a great plan. But I think when he actually met with Gresham to learn the details of that plan, that's when he started to see the cracks in the plan that he actually has. And so I think, the way that the whole thing panned out from beginning to end, I think, Demarest is just, I like his ideas. I think we should support them. But when he learns the details of those ideas, he's like, maybe this plan isn't quite as solid as I was hoping it would be. So let me try and work something better with this man. And Gresham does not seem to agree with me. I think that, part of it is ego as well. One of the things that I noticed about Roger in this particular story is that he wants to, be made a senior partner or a junior partner. He wants to be made an actual associate of the law firm that he works in. So he wants to be in a position of power, and that's something he currently does not have. And so I guess part of why he's so passionate about supporting this project is that this is his real first opportunity to get there. But when he actually learns the details of the plan that Gresham has in mind, he's like, you know what, I think this could definitely be better. How about we do this X, Y, and Z thing instead? And he's like, no, I like my plan better. So it seems like, we've got two men here with big egos, not being able to agree on something. And so that's why they keep going at it. And even after they get off the telly, they're still going at it. So yeah, I think it's a case of two men, big egos. They've got different ideas about how to approach the same solution to the same problem.
I just want to add that Joe Staton's art is wonderful. When he's drawing Helena in her civvies or as the Huntress, it's beautiful. But if you go to page 8, the bottom right corner, this dude just looks like a sleazeball and a half. He's showing up in professional workplaces looking like this. Like, he looks like someone who envisions how a sleazebag would look in the 70s, but from a modern perspective. Like, he just looks like a clown. Like, it's crazy that this is taken seriously. His shirt is open. He doesn't have any taco meat showing. And he has like this medallion thing on. Like, this dude looks like just a human resources disaster ready to happen.
He looks like he belongs in a discotheque.
I was just thinking he's ready to go disco.
He looks like, hey, I'm going to the restroom and my drink's coming with me. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I know, I mean that. I honestly mean it.
Oh, Lord.
This dude is awful. He just is.
Yeah, he's just.
And I understand, like, he had to beat her to be written that way, but it's so much hate that he's spewing. It's almost like, it's kind of like people. I'm slow. Like, I'm already for it, but I'm slowly hearing some people saying, like, you know what, man? Enough World War II movies, because it seems like it's just an excuse to have Nazis up there. Like, enough, right? So, like, I know that this dude exists and people like him exist, but it's like, I felt like, man, his finger was in Helena's face. And they kind of drew Helena like she was kind of whimpering. And then there was a part where he was saying some things like he's for the environment or for the lower class. So it made it seem like, oh, but he has a heart underneath all that misogyny. Oh, and it's kind of like, I don't like that got put out there.
Yeah, it is something. Now, to go back to a point earlier, we said that the clue, I don't know that we ever dropped what the clue was, that Gresham says even a child can play his part in rebirth of the city. And I think I assume that's the clue that she's looking at. Do I have that right? Did you guys catch that as well as being the clue?
Yeah, because the thing is that, remember that in the first part of this story, she saw a young child being paid to blow up buildings and stuff like that. So he was being paid to put a bomb somewhere. And so as soon as this guy says, even a young child can play a role in this rebirth, in the rebirth of this one part of the city, she's like, she put two and two together there. Mm-hmm. He's like, oh, hold on a second. This is the guy I need to pay attention to. And so that's, the clue that she, and it goes back to what I said earlier about Helena Wayne being, a very meticulous, very thorough person. When she investigates something, she pays attention to every detail. So as soon as, he says that one bit right there, even a child, it's bolded there, can play his part in the rebirth of the city, Mr. Damaris, she's like, oh my God, it was really that simple. All I had to do was turn on the telly and the information's right there.
I like that they didn't beat us over the head with it, though.
Yeah, that's true.
They let us figure out if we know what she found, which is interesting. She doesn't say, oh, I know why you said it because blah, blah, blah. They leave it up to the reader to try to put that together, which I like that. This one's easy, I think it's an easy figure-outer. Sometimes they leave it go and I never know what the clue was. That always drives me crazy. But this one, I think it was there. It was obvious enough without having to really beat us over the head with it. One last scene here. When she breaks into this guy's, I guess it's an apartment, she gets caught. She doesn't do this stealthily. She's over anxious. In fact, she says, whoops, did it again. I'm curious, do we have a problem with that? Is that okay? Is this good, bad? What is our impression of, the break-in and then being knocked unconscious?
Well, she does not have the JSA with her this time, so... Sorry. She does not have the JSA with her this time, so she's not really thinking about, right now the thing that's on her mind is, okay, this man is my prime suspect. I need to get evidence that links him to the arson that's going on in South Gotham. So she's not really thinking about that. She's just thinking, I need to quickly go in and out. And so she doesn't really have time, between when, what's his name, Mr. Gresham goes to the door and comes back, So it's a short trip from I think the living room to the door. So she's like, okay, I need to quickly go in and out, get what I need, but I need to crack this safe open. So she's not really thinking about, how to meticulously get, the stuff that she needs. She's thinking, okay, I've got evidence. I cannot, let this slip through my fingers again. I need to get it quickly. And so she's trying to do everything as quickly as possible. So of course she's not being very meticulous or thoughtful about this. She's just kind of quickly going through it. So yeah, she's making a noise that obviously gets noticed by Gresham himself. So yeah, it's getting into the boots of Helena Wayne here. She's basically just trying to pin this guy to a crime that she knows is being committed. And so she's just trying to get the evidence she needs as quickly as possible and get out, but it just doesn't work out that way for her.
Asher, what about you? You have any trouble with this, or did you like it as showing her, having, let's say errors, but I would say having her weaknesses?
I just accepted it. I do remember some of the outcomes of this, but I'm reading this a lot. It seems like they do it a lot when it's characters that don't have superpowers. It seemed like they succumb to this a lot, and they always have to die hard. So, I would like for Huntress to be slick and to avoid things like this, but, this is what we got. Mm-hmm. And, the only thing that you can take solace in is that the art in this looks wonderful.
Oh, definitely. That is definitely not a problem. That's about all I've got, guys. You have anything else you want to add on this one?
Diane?
I think I had one earlier and I just forgot it.
Don't you hate when that happens?
I know. It's like, wait a minute. I had it in my mind, and then I just forgot. But yeah, I just want to say that. I'll just add what, Astro already said, that the action sequences is very well done here. I like how your eye can just literally follow the Huntress everywhere, even when the action's happening on one single panel. So yeah, Joe Staton, once again, brings his A game to the table. All the acting is well done. And I like how Helena... I guess the main thing that I want to bring up about Helena as her civilian and her Huntress self, she tries not to give off the fact that she's the Huntress, because there's a panel where she looks a bit clueless or something like that, and I think she's doing that on purpose to not come off or to not give away the fact that she's a Huntress. But there's also something else going on here. While Roger Damaris is kind of going off and running his mouth, she's kind of thinking about her case at the same time. So her mind is kind of in two places there. She's like, oh yeah, I totally hear what you're saying, and I'm thinking about this other thing that is coming to my mind right now. So her mind is kind of in two places there. And so when she's in her civilian form, she kind of, I guess, does a lot of play acting, is how Power Girl describes it. And so she's basically just, I guess, living up to the expectations or such. But then, she gets to be her real self as a Huntress. So, yeah, at work she tries to avoid giving off the fact that she's the Huntress, and so while Roger and Arthur do their thing, she kind of does her own thing in her mind. She's kind of planning ahead, I guess.
In Paul Levitz's writing, think about how much we got out of this, and it's just, there's nothing just about it, but it's just a backup.
Well, it's actually a short story in a collection of short stories in Batman Family, because the thing is that all these stories in Batman Family are like anywhere from 10 to 12 pages, and this is just one of the stories in there. So it's basically not necessarily an anthology comic, Batman Family. It's just basically a collection of short stories, kind of like the anniversary specials we've been getting. This year, like to celebrate the 80th anniversaries of various characters. So basically that's what Batman Family was. It was basically a book that collected short stories with various Batman Family characters. You had a Batman story, you had a Batgirl story, a Robin story, and a Huntress story.
Well, hey, we'll wrap it up here. That was episode 36 of the Huntress Podcast. We would love to get some feedback from you if you can write to us at thehuntress.podcast.com. We're also on Twitter at Huntress Podcast. Of course, we are on Spotify. This podcast shares a feed with the Batgirl Cassandra Cain podcast. If you go to Spotify and you type in the Batgirl /Huntress Podcast, you'll find us. We're on Apple Podcasts. Just go to Apple Podcasts, type in the Batgirl /Huntress Podcast, give us a 5-star rating and write a review. That way other people can find us. That'd be pretty neat. So until next time, cheers.